I want to start with the Niners. So I just kind of did a cursory list in my head and then on the show yesterday of skill position studs on your team. Of, the best quarterbacks or teams that made the playoffs. So the running back, wide receiver, tight end last season. How many A minus A plus type of guys did your team have last year? So, here's a guy that gets a lot of credit, DeMonte. Your guy, Jordan Love, had zero.
None.
Zero guys that were definitive stars last year at wide receiver, tight end, or running back, and they still made the postseason. A bunch of quarterbacks had just one. Mahomes had Kelsey. Dak had CD. CJ, you could say, had zero. Nico, I think, edged into that group, but it's close. Lamar only had Mark Andrews, really, and then he got hurt, right?
Yeah.
A few guys have two. Joe Burrow, I know he was hurt last year, but as Higgins and Chase, you could say Jalen Hurts has AJ and Devontae. This year, maybe three if you include Saquon in that group. Purdy, of course, last year had four.
Yeah.
In C-Mac, Kittle, Debo, and Ayuk, which is what makes the Niners not trading Ayuk so curious to me. Because even if they had, now I understand why they don't want to trade him now, because anything they get from him now won't help you this season, but it would help you if you had done it before the draft. You would still have a bit of an embarrassment of riches. You'd still have an excellent wide receiver, a top 3 tight end, and the best running back in football. But I'm not trying to have a long Purdy conversation right now. I think they understand what that quarterback needs. Another guy who made the playoffs and had 2 absolute studs, but still just 2, is Tua. In Tyreek and Waddle, and then good players other places. But they're not going to trade Ayuk, and Ayuk's going to end up coming back whether he gets paid more or not. Trent Williams is a trickier one. Trent Williams might be the single most important player on the team because the rest of the offensive line isn't great. He is the best tackle in the whole sport, and Trent's, I think, 36 years old and still amazing. And he is 36 years old. Is that right?
No, man strength.
Yeah, he turned 36 last week, actually. And understands he's probably not going to get another contract because he has 3 years left on this deal. So he wants more money now. I think they have to flinch when it comes to Trent Williams. So I think the Niners will be okay for this season, but they're in an interesting spot moving forward. Dallas, objectively horrifying offseason. Lost multiple offensive linemen, did not address the running back position, have not gotten deals done with any of their 3 best players. Their star defensive player, their star wide receiver, and their franchise quarterback. And Jerry said he wanted to wait for more leaves to fall. The only really leaves left are his own guys. And you are now staring at Micah expecting $35 million a year because Nicky Bosa makes $34. CD expecting $35 million a year because that's what Justin Jefferson makes. And Dak is going to not sign for $1 less than $60 million a year, which to me means they're not going to be able to keep all 3. And so for this year, they'll have all 3. Again, for the Niners and Cowboys, the issues aren't about this season. They're about what it means down the road. Because the Niners are going to have, I think, this whole team together for this season. The Cowboys are going to have this whole team together for this season. Their issues for this season, the Cowboys, are not addressing running back. How, do they have, is the center position taking care of those things? The Eagles stuff is concerning. The Diana Rossini report, DeMonte, that said Sirianni and Jalen Hurts' relationship is a work in progress. This is Sirianni's 4th year as the head coach.
Yes,
Jalen's been the starting
sounds
quarterback
very
the
odd.
whole time. Like let me tell you this right now. Any relationship that 4 years in you're like is a work in progress, that's just what it's going to be. It's not all of it like, listen, those first 4 years, we didn't really like each other. But that's not that. And so it's a weird spot, and they have very different personalities. And in my opinion, the different personalities can work if the roles were flipped. If the braggadocious, over-the-top guy is the player and the reserved, cool, calm, collected guy is the coach. I'm not saying Sirianni's the problem necessarily. What I'm saying is you don't have to have the same personality to get along. But what is very tough is if the one who's the more flamboyant's the wrong word, but kind of in your face, live wire. That needs to be the player role, not the coach role. And so, so I understand it's not coach quarterback, but Travis Kelce, Andy Reid have a similar dynamic of Sirianni and Hurts, but the roles are reversed.
Yeah.
Andy Reid's the stoic, you know what I mean? Everything's going to be fine leader. Kelsey's losing his mind. Yep. Right, but it can work in that situation. And so I think that folks need to remember the Philadelphia Eagles from week 1 to the end of the year last year were a bottom 5 defense. You then add to it that the offense seemed to somewhat fall apart over the final month and a half of the year. They lost 6 of their final 7 games, and in that playoff game, it looked like they quit. Flatly quit. So, all of this is really a preamble to why, DeMonze, I think I'm picking the Bears to win the NFC. Because there is not a clear-cut end boss they have to get through. There are big issues with every known quantity team. The other team that comes to mind is the Rams, but the Rams might have suffered the single biggest loss of any team in the league this offseason with Aaron Donald retiring. Like, that can't be... It's not looked at the same as if I feel like if Aaron Donald had left the Rams to go play for the Texans, that when we talk about the Rams, there would be more discussion about, and they lost Aaron Donald. But because he retired and he's out of the league, I just don't think it's at the front of people's mind. And I get he was not still peak Aaron Donald. But what he was at worst, the third best player in the league at his position. And some would argue he was still the best. Some people think he was still better than Chris Jones. And so he's probably the second best D tackle in the league. That guy leaves. And so I like the Rams a lot, but there's a but there. There's no one in the NFC South that I think is a legitimate Super Bowl contender. I don't buy Atlanta like that. That then does leave the 2 other NFC North teams, the Lions and the Packers. The Packers were a 9-win team last year, so the gap between them and Chicago wasn't as great as it is in our mind's eye. Obviously, Chicago made massive upgrades this offseason. Now, the Packers upgrade was they're so young, everyone got better. And then there is Detroit. And maybe it'll be Detroit. But the teams that are kind of the NFC standard bearers the last few years all have real buts about them, which is why it could be a weird season. Hey, thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button to get more from the show, and make sure to click the bell to get notified every time new content drops. Check out full episodes of What's Right wherever you get your podcasts, or just click the link in the description below.